Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the factions, forces, and faces of the Warhammer 40k setting, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And today, I now enter a brief period where I take a rest, regroup, and start writing even more. But I do need a break. Alas, I have the urge to do some personal projects in writing, possibly even a novel. So we'll be attempting that in my period off. No, it can't be Warhammer. But hopefully some will think it of worth, if I manage that first draft. A dream for decades, and I have few of those left, so best get on with it, as they say. You never know what you can do until you try. Hence, as usual, I will be releasing some compilations of my own wee stories to tide me over. YouTube can be a harsh taskmaster, and videos need to be uploaded continuously. So, in this period, I put out collections to paint or sleep with. I hope you enjoy this compilation for what it is, and I thank you, gentle listener, for all of your support over the year and years. You truly have changed everything in my life. Thank you. I can only hope that I have made some kind of beneficial impact in yours. Now, to the stories. From the Bald Library, Bait. Bait. That's all we were. We, the wild cards. The most decorated flight wing in the expedition. On the screens before us, we could see the planned flight vectors for the day. We could not believe it, any of it. When the CAG marched in, we had stood sharply enough, snapped off salutes that would have made our drill instructors proud. But when we returned to our seats, most were slouching, hunched, defeated. We couldn't beat these Xenos. The CAG knew it. We knew it. Their fighters banked, rolled, and accelerated so fast, we could never get them in our sights even. Dives that would have broken us, made us black out at the least. Their reflexes were so fast. It was impossible to hit them, nearly so to evade their return fire. So many times that I watched as my friends fell from the skies as bursts of fire and wreckage. Spindle, Spitter, Ruck, Rogue, Dunce and Ripper all had been downed in one dogfight. They were not alone. Each day we went down there, they tore us to pieces. Some said it was because we were tied to the transport, that we couldn't go hunting like we ought to. But these were few, and gained glares and sneers when they touted this twaddle. I knew it. Anyone with a brain knew it. We could not beat them. Then the CAG turned to the map and confirmed our flight plans for the day. No transports to guard, no target to hit. We were to go down there and just do a flyby. Everyone smelt a rat. Everyone. Then the doors opened. I looked around, all of us did. So many empty chairs, so many had gone. But we expected to see some idiot who'd got the wrong room, someone who would then be on slop duty for a month. But it was no lost clod. It was them. A full dozen of them marched into the room and took up positions behind us, watching. We were all in awe. Oh, I'd seen their transports. I'd flown over them 100 times, little ants marching into the enemy, but never up close. Everyone craned their necks or blatantly turned to watch them. Astartes, Space Marines, Angels of Death, and some shot furtive glances at each other. Was this a threat? Go to your certain deaths, or face them. Ugh. But the last Marine came in after the others, and he went to the head of the briefing and shook the hand of the CAG. This Goliath then turned to us and boomed out. Even their voices were somehow bigger, deeper, richer than any normal man's. "I can see it in your eyes, your bearing, your stance. Even the smell coming from you. Fear. But know this. It was I who overlooked every fighter group in the expedition, and it was I who formulated this plan, and it was I who requested you by name. Why you? Because I needed the best. Why you? Because of all of the wings, only you have given good account of yourselves against a truly superior enemy. Why the wild cards? Because of all of the wings in the expeditionary fleet, it is you I deemed most worthy and deserving to see this. Your job this day is simple. Go out. Look like a big, fat target. Then, when they come, for come they will, you will not attempt to get them in your sights. You will not attempt to sacrifice yourselves for glory. In the Emperor's name, I command you. You will live. And then, the wild cards will gain your reward." Despite myself, my spine straightened, my shoulders went back, my chest puffed out. None asked for this, none commanded it. It just happened. We all stood and saluted. The Goliath in warplate then nodded at us as a clear signal of dismissal. And we couldn't believe it. The Marines, they all saluted us as we left. The CAG was now in deep discourse with the speech-giving Marine. We had no certainty of what was going on, but somehow we walked out taller. Banter began to fly again. We had our balls back. The next morn came. Anticipation was high. The excitement so rich you couldn't breach it with a las cutter. And off we went. The skies were bright, and the clouds were fluffy this day. We started out in a tight wedge, as was our way. After a full half hour of just prancing around in the skies, it seemed we had somehow scared the enemy with our fighting spirit. Then we saw them. We didn't usually. Most often, the first sign of contact was one of us exploding. But not today. They practically signpost their presence. Arrogant bastards. And unlike other times, when they raced towards us, we scattered. They were so used to us trying to engage them that for a second they seemed to have caught them unawares, but they reacted quickly to our new approach. Their sleek swept-wing fighters broke off and started hunting us down, one of them for each of us. And the chase began. Powering down as fast as I could, I led mine away from the others. I didn't know what to expect, but I had my orders. Live. So I did. I banked and rolled, dived and fled, and my personal hunter clipped me twice, but only enough to heat the wing, not melt it or tear it off. I did not realize I had strayed so far from the main wing, not until it happened. I rose above the clouds again and witnessed it. The wild cards were now there, near all of them, flying in a dispersed formation. A simple circuit, preventing the enemy from escaping, nothing more. I had no time to gape. I was still being chased, and he was right behind me, putting shots above me, beside me, all around me. He was playing. Then, my hunter broke off and powered upwards in an impossible climb. And there, a dart of blue now chasing after him. Without the constant jinking and rolling, I could now bask in that which my wingmates had all been seeing. And I could not help myself. I whooped with all my heart and burst out laughing. The vision before me was as impossible as the enemy fighters, because they were getting a taste of their own medicine. There in the skies were fighters I had never seen before, each one with Imperial markings and Legion sigils. Marines flew these fighters. They were as fast as the enemy, were able to do what they did. Dives and rolls that would have put me out. Speed that made it difficult to even keep them in my vision. Accuracy that made even the enemy pilots look slow and ungainly. And I watched as I saw revenge. For the Marine did not finish off the fighter that had chased me. He put shots above it, all around it, just like it had done to me. When the enemy fighter performed one of their evasive maneuvers, the Marine fighter was right behind him. I looked around and watched as the Marines slew every last one of these Xenos pilots. Only when my hunter was the last in the sky did the Marine pilot chase them towards us. He was corralling the Xenos fighter towards the wildcards, and to me. And I did it. I flew up, then came down just as he was passing, and I cut that alien fighter in half. The Marine dove down, and his fighter came alongside me, so close I could make out his blue helmet and the fist that he rose to indicate a thumbs up. Ha! I copied him. He nodded and then broke off to rejoin his own flight wing. The CAG then came on the comms and stated boldly, the most gorgeous thing I had ever heard. Wildcards. Our allies are now going off to hunt more of the enemy fighters. They invite you to proceed to their launching site and do what comes naturally. With a cheer from every throat in the wing, we wildcards descended on the Xenos airfield, and we leveled the place. Defiance. This is going to be fun. I know I should not put it that way, that men and women will die, that I may well end up being one of them, but this is what we do. This is what I was born to do. We fight, and we win. Why? Because we are human. Because we are the Emperor's own navy. Damn the whiny melancholy of the ground pounders. Damn the fanatics who throw themselves into the grinder. We aren't like them in any way. Well, apart from the fact we're all humans, of course. And thus, followers of the God Emperor. And now, we are about to bring his own wrath down on these Xenos scum. It had been 3 weeks since we found one of our worlds annihilated by nuclear weaponry. That's what the tech priest called it. The surface of Ignatius 5 was a burning hellscape, even when we arrived. And that must have been at least days after the attack. We hunted, of course, trying to find the vile horrors who had performed this butchery of a helpless agri world. And we all knew who had done it. Rakghoul scum. Oh, they were dangerous enough to planets and ground pounders, but their ships were junk. Despite this, they still had teeth, and that is where we came in. For the Rakghoul ships were nothing but a huge central line weapon with scrap around it. They had some turrets, howler cannons, roarer beams, both of which could pose a threat to a ship of the line. But it was the clanger torpedo tubes that were their main threat to our base ship. The Rakghoul were nasty in close quarters. If they got onto the Promethean Wrath, well, there would be serious issues. The main weapons would be a threat to our home, our base ship, the Promethean Wrath, but not to us. So we saddled up, and we got the order, and off we went. A full flight of over 400 fighters sent out to face them. The great amount were Furies, of course. A quarter with a real power in the Force. We Starhawks. Multiple flights of Furies were hanging back, providing an escort to our capital ship, just in case this was a trap. But it was not. We could all sense it. This was time for some retribution. Because they had come out of nowhere again and again over the last few years, appearing, smashing planets and populations, then heading off again just as quickly, and we had to peruse their handiwork again and again. Finally we had them in our sights. I looked to my crew, watching for their temper, their center. Their heads are down, their concentration undivided, their urge as great as my own. A full dozen men under my command. I see chevrons across the data screens. We are advancing in a pincer action, as instructed, broken into segments as the thing turns around to meet us. They cannot escape. They know they cannot run. So, like a wounded animal, they turn to fight. If we fail, they will plough through space towards a Promethean wrath and try to get their central cannon firing on our home. We cannot let this happen. As we get closer, I want to retch. Just the sight of its alien fins and decks brings out something instinctive in me. Pure, unadulterated hatred. It's a Butcher-class vessel, you see. This is most likely the very ship that nuked that agri-world into oblivion. And I am going to enjoy this. A murmur becomes a psalm as the lads begin to bellow out the hymns of retribution. I can feel my fingers itching to lock and then order the gunners to rip this thing to pieces. Patience. We must get closer. And then it happens. Long cylinders fly out from the Butcher's ship and slam towards us. But we know we are the target of the attack. They don't have the precision for that. Comms buzz, and the expected statement comes through. The interceptors, the Furies, burst forward and twist in space to follow the cylinders. They open up with their las cannons, getting as close to the boarding pods as possible, but they are tough, and concentrated fire is the only thing that would take them out. So, we are stripped of our Guardian fighter wing escorts. Now, if this had been an Eldar Corsair wing, or traitors or renegades, there is no way we would have carried forward without them. We would be so much Grox fodder against nippy interceptors. But these are Rakgol. They don't have the fighters to take us out. I cannot split my attention. I assume the Furies will be successful. I assume we will have somewhere to return to when this is done. I concentrate all of my attention on the main ship. As we hit a certain range, the fire starts coming out from it. Turrets track in our direction, and a wave of flak fire comes bursting out at us. Lines of energy flash through the void, but few connect. Their targeting is so rudimentary, this is almost a joke. Almost too easy. Then, I hold that thought, as they turn a fraction towards us and fire their main cannon. An explosion of power comes from them and carves into the night. Like a mad Ogryn, they flail out without accuracy or control. But the strength is there. I see wings 2 through 8 evaporate. Alas, I will mourn them. But only when the deed is done. Another blast comes out from that central column, but we have scattered. Only 2 Starhawks are taken this time. One of them was zigging when it should have been zagging. And I understand. The Rakgol know that they will not take many of us with this mad shooting from their main guns, but it puts people off their concentration on the defensive waves of turret fire. Clever for Xenos scum. The order is given, and as one, over 50 Hawks unleash our payload of missiles. We join them, of course. The enemy's flak take out some, but not enough, and plumes of multicolored fire erupt all across the Butcher's hull. But this is only the starting course of our banquet of vengeance. Timing will be the crux point here. I can only hope the rest can control themselves. I know I will find it difficult. I feel the Emperor's own rage coursing through my veins. I flick a look at my gunners. They are attentive, but also watchful. They see me whip my gaze across them. They know. None will fire until I have given the word, or they will have a very cold time outside as we return home and they float about to consider their decisions before their air runs out. I run a tight ship. They all know that. We head in closer and scorch the ship with our las cannons blazing. This is superficial damage at best, but it feels good, and it is a distraction unto itself. I have to control myself as I bite back a curse as some of the new recruits of other Starhawks panic and had fly too early. If we time this wrong, this thing will blow up in our faces. But the untried and untested who discharge their payload are the minority. More of our number crash and burn as we penetrate the optimal range of their flak screens, but most are hit or just tipped and gain the glory of battle damage. I personally despise the repainting it requires, but I feel their joy. To be shot, but not destroyed. To walk through the fires and be touched, but not consumed. I keep our heading erratic and our speed up. We will not be hit thus. And then it is time. That moment that means life or death. We are moving directly along its hull. Close, very. I wait. I hold. We fly. I hold. Then, as we fly over its midship and threaten to pass it still filled, I dump out our cargo. Plasma bombs rain down on its arse section and engines, and we dash for distance, followed by all of the others who've done exactly as we have. In our rear view, we can see the rents and plumes of fire seem to connect over the entire ship like lava dropped in spiderweb patterns. And then it becomes a star of light and radiation as the butcher ship explodes. And while the litanies of victory are screamed out from every throat here, I nod in satisfaction. This is how we will do it. This is how we will hold on. Battle by battle, system by system, war by war. We will never surrender. We may suffer defeats, but we will never be defeated, because we are human, and this galaxy is ours. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. If you have enjoyed these stories, then do consider liking and subscribing, and tipping with a super thanks if I've earned your bounty this day. There is a link to the patron in the video description also, if you feel that generous. But more importantly, now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.